Genetics plays a big role no matter what. Genetics plays a big role in every aspect of our lives. Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Dare to Speak. I think that this is a very important subject. I think this is actually very profound, in my opinion. Whether we want to accept it or not, genetics plays a big role in many different aspects. When it comes to intellect level, a person's intellect level, when it comes to a person's body type, the way they're born, people that are born tall, people that are born to be tall, people that are born to be muscular, people that are born to be fat, and also human behavior. It's part of our DNA. And I know that this is something that's going to probably get a lot of people angry, maybe, I don't know. But if it does, I don't care. I honestly don't care. Because I think that this is actually not only very truthful, but it's something that most people, I should fairly say, to be fair, that some people will not really agree with. I mentioned already in one video in which it was called God has nothing to do with your looks or the way you look, something like that. When someone complains about how they look, they don't look good looking enough for whatever the reason, and someone tries to comfort them by saying, God made you what you are. He loves you and he does, this and that. You are what you are because God made you that way, which is a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. And it's very stupid. You are what you are because of genetics, because of the way your mom looks, the way your dad looks. People that are born to be, a certain body type and kind of thing. Like some people are born to be overweight. Like, for example, I was born what is called a endomorph, which is one of the three body types. There's the mesomorph, the endomorph, and the ectomorph. And I was endomorph, which is a person who gains weight very easily. And it's not impossible for them to lose weight. It's just that it's very difficult because it's in their DNA. And I started gaining weight when I was about 19 years old. I would say 4 months shy of 19. And I struggled with it for most of my life. But before that, during my teenage years, I was very thin. And of course, I was into taekwondo, kung fu, karate. I was into everything, and I was pretty good at it. And I know that even, especially in high school, I was mostly skinny from my freshman and sophomore year. The thing about it is, that type of body type someone is shaped a certain way, and when they get muscular, they're of course they're going to be built a certain way as well. Now the mesomorph is a person who's naturally born to be, or genetically born to be, muscular. You can start to see their shape as they're getting older from an early age, and then naturally they have a very high metabolism, and they like to be very active, and then they start gaining that shape they start gaining muscle very easily, and then they're very good in sports and things like that. So that's like the mesomorph. And the ectomorph is a person who is born to be skinny, who's genetically born to be skinny. And these people can eat and eat and eat, and they will not gain weight because that's how their metabolism is. That's how their body type is. Now, the thing is, I'm sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought. When it comes to the intellect level of someone. Now, this is something that I got into a lot of arguments with as well, and some people actually got angry and they didn't want to talk about it anymore. They wanted to change the subject. They were saying, we were talking about education, and I told them how I didn't do very well in school. And it wasn't that I was lazy or I just didn't want to try hard enough or anything like that. I did have a learning disorder. I was a little bit dyslexic, but I also had an attention deficit disorder, and I had some degree of autism, and I didn't even know it when I was in school. I had it pretty rough through grade school, middle school, and high school because of it. And I didn't even know why. And unfortunately, I found out late. Now, that I inherited from my parents. My mom was dyslexic. My dad had attention deficit disorder. And they had members of their family from their family bloodline going, they were pretty much the same way. They had some degree of learning disorders. But when it came to creativity, I was very creative. I was very good in drawing when I was younger. When I was in middle school and high school, I had a talent for writing. And I was in journalism class. And I loved music. I learned to play the piano. There was also some creativity in the way I thought about things, and the way I would put them in words, or the way I would present it in, I don't know, like in speech class. When I was very good in presenting things. When I went up to the podium and I started saying my speech, I was very good at that. And I got into a debate in which I heard from someone saying that the reason why honor students are what they are, the reason why they do so well in school, it's just that 10% of it has to do with being naturally smart. 90% of it has to do with their attitude, their hard work, that kind of whatever stuff, their discipline and stuff like that. And I didn't buy into it. To me, I thought it was like, I thought it was kind of like bullshit. Something just didn't seem right to me. And not just because of my background and what I went through, but I also had a little bit of like a suspicion. And I would argue saying, I'm pretty sure that 70% of it has to do with genetics. They're naturally born to be smart. And 30% has to do with their hard work, their discipline, that kind of thing. And of course, me and a couple of these people were getting into a debate because of that. And also, that's the same thing with people that are physically fit. Most of it has to do with genetics, 70%. This is just my guess. I'm not saying this is like the exact percentage or anything like that. But the thing about it is, it's just way too obvious that's true. Someone's intellect level, they inherited from either the mother's side of the family or the father's side of the family, from their aunts and uncles, cousins, and all that kind of thing. So it has a lot to do with that. And when I spoke to somebody on that particular subject, and I was trying to argue my point as civilized as I could, being very subtle about it. When we got deep into the conversation, he says, I don't think you want to say that to anybody if it does turn out to be true, because if it's most likely true, I don't think that's going to be good for kids that are not doing so well in their studies. And this guy was part of the teen center of a recreation center, and he was like a tutor and stuff like that. And he says, I don't know, dude, but I don't think you should be saying that, because who knows what kind of repercussions it could actually cause, especially if someone is able to prove it, that it's most likely true. And also, I mean, you do see also in other ways, like for example, you would see when it comes to back to the whole body type thing and the way a person is built. Sometimes you can't really go as far as to say that if you work really hard, if you try exercising so much, you'll get the body you want. That is basically not true. Yes, you can get physically fit, you can, but if you want to have the same body type as this person for sex appeal or whatever like that, and you actually lack serious sex appeal, it's not going to happen.
For you and me. Ice cream? Sure. Gee, an exercise room would be great. Then we wouldn't have to wait in line to use their equipment and be laughed at by women with good bodies. Chocolate sauce?
Okay.
That's one example right there. And even though it's from a sitcom, to me, I think it shows a perfect example. Now, when it comes to behavior, and I mentioned this before in a couple of videos that I did in the past, like this one guy said from Prager University, why do people commit evil? Because it's easy to, because it's tempting to, and it often accords with human nature. It's part of our primal nature why we do bad things. It's not sinful nature, because that doesn't make any sense. It's part of our primal nature. Just as much as we are capable of doing good, being compassionate, which is also in our nature. It's a lot of us have that empathy or things like that. But at the same time, we're also capable of doing very bad and horrible things. Murder, violence, bad verbal language and bad attitudes and whatever, and just doing bad things like betraying someone and being stingy and being a narcissist, all this kind of things. Yes, it's true that we could actually be taught that way. We could be encouraged or brainwashed or whatever like that. But it makes it worse. It makes an already existing problem someone who's born with a predisposition to do evil, to be more messed up in the head, to be more evil. Especially with the right type of guidance, with the right type of person who teaches them to be a serious scumbag. And of course, the perfect example of that would be ghetto trash people. I saw that when I used to live in the hood, when I used to live in the ghetto. Not just with street gangs that I seen a lot and that I grew up with, but I noticed that a lot of people that I know when I was growing up as a teenager, that when I would visit and I would meet their parents, their siblings, or whatever, they're all like they all had the same type of attitude. Now, someone would say, oh, they just learned it from their parents. That's why they're like that. True in a lot of respects. In a lot of respects, I would actually agree with that. But I also had this nagging intuition that is like inborn. It's in their blood. They have a predisposition to become that way. Some people just have very bad genetics coming from their family bloodline. And if someone in their family was psychotic, who has what is called the warrior gene, which someone becomes very arrogant, very competitive, they snap like crazy, just like a person who's bipolar, and they get extremely violent. They're naturally strong because of that too, which makes it even worse. And they're just pretty much labeled as, crazy or stuff like that. If they have people like that in their family, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, either the person's father or the person's mother, they're gonna pass that gene on to them. And a couple of their siblings, if they have like 3, 4 siblings or whatever, there's a very good chance that one of them may not have it at all, because they might be lucky enough not to have that in their DNA, not to have that gene. And some people, and maybe one of them might even have it, but not as severe. I noticed that a lot from people, and I still to this very day, I'm already convinced that also plays a role. When someone becomes a criminal, half of the reason has to do with environment. It is environment. When you grow up in a negative environment, you're going to learn that stuff, and then it's going to affect you in a bad way. Yeah, it's going to. But the other 50% has to do with genetics. You're genetically born to be a punk. A high-risk gene, they call it. A high-risk gene. And that's when I got into serious arguments because of it too. To me, also, I mean, it's just way too obvious. Now, some of you might, say that what I'm saying is bullshit and it's simply not true. I mean, that's okay. You can think what you want, but if you really do your research, maybe you might realize that there's a lot of truth to what I'm saying. It's very sad because we live in a world that is socially Darwinistic. There's a lot of truth to what Herbert Spencer has said about social Darwinism. He's the one who was made famous for that. And even though he said a few things that were very arrogant and very insensitive, aside from that, I also believe that he was also very right. So that's bottom line. You are what you are because of genetics. And also, like when someone is naturally strong, they can pass it on to their kids. They grow, then they actually have a predisposition to inherit that gene. And it's the same thing with human behavior, and it's the same thing with intellect level. To me, it's very fucked up, and it seems very unfair. It is. And I really wish that a lot of it, that it wasn't actually true, for the most part. But unfortunately, it's true. And that's the world we live in. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, you know what to do. This is Dare to Speak. And to all of you, take care.